Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. So glad you could be with me as we kind of get ready. How else are we going to describe it without losing our sanity, what little sanity we have? Trying to get ready for next season. Yeah, it's going to be here sooner than you think. Blocked out another spot on my calendar recently. How about you? Anyway, one way to do that is to get a different perspective on dog training and performance. We're going to have Josh Michaelis here. He's a hound hunter and a dog food representative for one of our sponsors, Joy Dog Food. This guy knows his stuff. He's a competitor, and a lot of the stuff that he will talk about will be transferable from hounds to bird dogs, which he has also worked with. So he's one of us, but he's got a new, fresh look at things. And speaking of fresh and new, then Hannah Leonard will join us. She's with the organization called Sporting Lead Free. Keep an open mind. We're going to talk about the advantages and the challenges of shooting non-toxic ammo. She'll be magically transporting herself and me from Pheasant Fest in Minneapolis. So a lot to talk about there, including our Handle It segment on running birds, why it's not so bad sometimes. And you're going to show us an old dog photo or two from social media and kindle some very fond memories. So looking forward to all of that right here on the Upland Nation podcast, made possible by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, and Joy Dog Food. Well, you know the phrase, do as I say, not as I do. Well, I'm a victim of it once in a while as well. Yeah, Flick, he's a pretty good retriever most of the time. But I discovered something recently, especially in the tall brush out behind our place, that seems to be yet another thing to put on my to-do list in terms of training with him. Tell me about this. You've discovered it too, I bet. You train a dog to retrieve. Over and over again, you're lobbing the bumpers, or you got dead birds, or all of the above, and the dog is doing flawlessly. In the yard, off the table, in the field, it doesn't matter. And then you throw it farther or shorter. Or in my case, I finally pulled out one of those, retriever trainer gizmos. You load it with a little blank cartridge and you shoot it and the bumper goes way off. Well, poor Flick, his perspective literally is so warped to the same distance for every retrieve that we're going back to square one. Yeah. I'm trying a few things there just to make sure that he understands, yeah, sometimes it goes farther, sometimes it goes closer. Starting with letting him see that thing bounce on the ground. So we got to have open territory for that. Can't do it in the sagebrush and the junipers at my place. The other one is release him a little bit sooner from his whoa so that he can start chasing in the right direction before it falls to the ground. Anyway, wish me luck. Maybe you'll see that on TV next year. Anyway, it seems to be working so far. I asked on social media recently for, a tough one. Show us an old dog photo and then kindle a fond memory. And that's the fun part. We're going to focus on that. I've got some great ones here. Rashawn Gordon, hope you're well down there. Starting to warm up already, isn't it? He's got a picture of him and his old dog, Addie. Her last hunt at age 17. You guys know what I'm talking about here. The face is virtually all white, but she's looking at him as if he is the only thing in the universe. Mike LaRoe shows me a picture of his beautiful white pointer. I'll call it brown on the face, but a beautiful white body. Rock at 12 after his retirement, acting as a live backing dummy for our youngsters in training. The youngest pups, Mike says, would occasionally jump on him during these drills, but he would not flinch. He would also stand release after 0 training. Yeah, I believe it. No e-collar. Great story. Thanks, Mike. Glenn Matthews, Jet. Yeah, looks like a black lab from here when he turned 14. He's almost 15 now. Traveled over 200,000 miles in pursuit of birds in the field. Yeah, again, very gray muzzle. Beautiful dog. Brian Wormick says, I've had many GSPs and black lab. My current chocolate lab, Geneva Belle, is my best. I think that's always true, Brian. We become better trainers. And yes, maybe we become better shoppers for dogs as well. Not only is Geneva Belle a great pointing lab, the most wonderful house dog, loves everyone. Musket. That's a great name for a dog. This one in particular is a yellow lab. Frank Luke shows her with an idyllic setting in the background. A volunteer with California Department of Fish and Wildlife since he was 6 months old, working the Heritage Bird Program. I'm not sure if I know what that one is, Frank, but, I get it. Taking young first-time hunters and families, now retired. Well, I wish Musket a happy and long retirement. All right, got to go to one of Don Erlinson's old wires. Ellie Mae at 15 years old. She gave us much more than she knew. She looks like it. She's the picture of wisdom. It's a nice tight close-up of a wire hair with, every aspect of her furnishings is gray. Eyebrows, the cheeks, the beard, it's all that way. Yeah. Hey, thank you all so much. I can't go any deeper or I'll just be sad the rest of the podcast. And you don't want that. We've got a lot to cover here, so stick around. First off, we are brought to you in part by pointershotguns.com. All their shotguns have a 7-year warranty. And I know from semi-personal experience, Tom got one and needed some work done on his. They'll take care of you. Now compare that to anybody else in the industry. 7-year warranty on a shotgun? Pointershotguns.com, learn all about it, and then make sure you understand there's now 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 color choices for the metal on your gun. From case coloring, I can't wait, mine's on the way, nickel receiver, the standard bluings, plus Cerakoting in several color choices. Shop your model. Find a nearby retailer at pointershotguns.com. And then Joy Dog Food, one of our newest supporters here, and I sure appreciate it. Appreciate that. Is that what I said? Yeah, appreciate it. Family owned and operated, 100% American made and American ingredients. So all the stuff that they're sourcing is from right here in the US of A. Fixed formulas, so always going to have the same stuff in the same proportions. And convenient. Joy Dog Food is available at feed stores throughout the United States. Put some joy in your dog. JoyDogFood.com. Well, this is a conversation I'd love to have more often. I'll never forget being in a room full of houndsmen a long time ago, and we were on the same side, but there seemed to be a lot of people in that room that were not on our side. Here's one who is from JoyDogFood.com. Yeah, that's where you learn more about them. Josh Michaelis joins me. Josh, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you, Scott.
You are, first and foremost a hound hunter now, but you've been in the bird dog world for quite a while as well. Tell me about your, give me the backstory on Josh Michaelis, bird dogs, hound hunting, the whole bit.
You bet. I was born and raised right here in North Missouri on the Iowa border, and we've had treeing walker coonhounds for as long as I can remember. My grandfather, my brother, myself, and all that stuff. And I went through a pretty good stretch there where that's all I cared about and all I wanted to do. And then when I was about 17, 18 years old, a friend of mine took me quail hunting right here around the house with his English pointers. And since we were best friends, and he had English pointers, I could not get English pointers, so I had to get English setters.
A compromise. So
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
setter people, don't take it personally.
But no, I picked me up a couple setters, and at that time, as I got older, we had a construction business, and I was doing that, and I was traveling a lot for that, and I've always had hounds, but they are just like the bird dogs are. They're such a big priority and a big time-consuming, thing to have. And I had to have one or the other. So for a while, that's all I had was my two setters, and I traveled around doing a lot of upland hunting. Montana, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, and I had a great time doing it. I enjoyed it, but eventually I got back to my roots, and the competition aspect of the hound stuff is so appealing to me that, I went back to hunting hounds, and I've been doing it ever since.
It's funny you bring up competition because we have ways to do that, and I was asked to make a couple TV series on that idea and just turned them down basically. But but in the hound world, it is your Coachella. You guys get together, and that's where it all happens. Man, the hair is standing up on the back of my neck. The times I've been around hound hunting have been very few, but it's always that way. There's adrenaline in the air. You're just sucking it in through your lungs. What is it about that competition and a hound hunt that is so appealing to you guys?
I think a lot of it has to do with the pride in our animals and the want and the need to show them off, because, at this point in time, we hunt for huge purses, $100,000 purses, brand new pickups, large entry fee hunts. And we get the same feeling doing that as we did entering a local $15 event that paid nothing but a ribbon. It's something about taking a young dog, just like a bird dog as well. It's something about taking a young dog and molding it and getting it to where you want it. And you just kind of want to show the world the product that you've made out of those amazing animals.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the difference I've seen is the big money, if you want to call it that, the big money bird dog field trials are dominated by professionals. Mm-hmm. I think to a great degree that's true in your world as well, but there's always room for the guy with 4 or 5 dogs in a wooden box in the back of his flatbed, isn't there?
There always is, and it's a wonderful community that can go, any way that you want. And I just, my healer's barking right there in the background. But it's a wonderful community, and there's so many levels to it. It's can be whatever you want to make it. But you look at a guy, I'm going to bring a guy that I've got experience with up, and that's Steve Sykes. He went and paid a $4,000 entry fee to a $100,000 hunt with a dog that he raised, trained, and bred himself, and he won the whole thing. He's not a professional. I believe he's an electrical lineman. And the man went home with a $100,000 check with the dog that he raised from a 7-week-old puppy.
Wow.
And so it can be done. And yes, you're right. It is a lot of professional handlers with guys paying their way. And those are good guys, but they all started out in the same place, just like Mr. Sykes did.
And just before we leave the hound hunting world, just tell me what it is about the dogs that you most admire.
Their heart, if you can find it, the drive, because we put so much pressure on these dogs traveling up and down the road and competing in such strange places, and to find one that can do that away from home consistently is so hard. I mean, and when you do, I just admire that dog can stay so focused around what's going on around him in, such a strange place and a strange situation.
All right, let's switch gears. Hopefully, most of the time, our dogs aren't barking when they're chasing game or
right.
Seeking game, but there is something to be said for that as well. Are there any similarities, as a guy who basically has straddled both worlds, bird dogs and hound dogs? What are the similarities, whether it's in, let's start with conditioning, for example, getting a dog into shape. We all need to do that. In fact, this time of year, that's what we should be working on, everybody. Don't tell me, I'm trying. What about that? Can you give us some hints on conditioning our dogs that they could do what your dogs do?
I would turn that around, Scott, because your guys' dogs are in better shape than ours. We've all got GPS and telemetry, and we know how fast our dogs are going and how many miles they cover in a day. But there are not very many sporting and working dogs that work as hard as a pointing dog or a flushing dog that hunts all day long. There's just not. We really like to keep our dogs in top-notch condition. We use things like slat mills. We have roading harnesses for our dogs where we can road them and stuff like that. But the main thing is to hunt them. There's no replication for hunting them, and we're lucky enough to be able to hunt ours 12 months a year.
Yeah.
We hunt them in the heat of the summer. We hunt them in the depths of winter. So we've got a leg up there. Our seasons are all year long. And so we can get that dog out and we can get it hunted and get it in shape. But yeah, there's a hard hunted pointing dog is in better shape than our hounds are. I mean, just as far as endurance and mileage and things like that they can cover at the rate that they cover it at.
Wow, I'd have never thought that, but you're the expert. And now we have the data to prove it because, like you said, we're all using collars of one sort or another.
Yep.
Just for the record, Slat Mills would be a great name for a bluegrass band from Kentucky.
Yeah, I agree.
But what the hell is a slat mill?
Slat mill is basically a dog treadmill.
Okay.
And it is not like our treadmills. They're well built. There's lots of good slat mill companies out there. Some of the listeners want to Google that, but they're a fantastic thing for a dog, especially when we do all our work at night. And some nights that you've had a long hard day at work and you want to get home, but your dog needs to get 4 or 5 miles in. You can just put them on the slat mill.
Wow.
And that it's more like running than on a regular treadmill.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that for around here in February.
Yes, they are fantastic. The well-built ones are fairly expensive and pricey, but they're worth every penny.
How about the training side of things? I know you're training for different things, and to a great degree, 2/3 of the listeners want our dog to find game and hold still after they find it. But there are other training aspects, and they may boil down to what I'll loosely describe as obedience, if you will. What do you do, and what do we do that there may be some commonality, or maybe there's some things you do that we should adopt?
The recall is important with ours, just like it is yours. One thing that houndsmen do not adopt as often as upland or retriever guys is the force training.
Yeah.
We don't have a habit of putting pressure on a dog until it does something right. They have a bad habit of putting pressure on a dog when it does something wrong. And I think that's very transferable, and guys are getting better about it. When they're collar conditioning, that's something that houndsmen don't do enough or as well as they should. But there's a lot of aspects that are similar in exposing your puppy to certain situations. Just as well as I do, Scott, that these things are sponges and they learn so quick and so fast. And our hounds have really gotten a lot more intelligent, to be honest, in the last 20, 30 years. And we're just coming around to having pets and hunting dogs at the same time. That's not as common in the hound world as it is, the upland stuff. Yeah,
and I understand some of the practical reasons for that. Some of you have truckloads of dogs.
Yes.
And whether you're running them all together or not is immaterial. You still got to feed them, house them, keep them hydrated. And that's a logistical challenge as well. But there is something to be said for dogs in the house relating to humans all the time, isn't there?
I agree. And, it depends on the type of hunting we're doing with the hounds. You look at someone with a kennel full of foxhounds, or the bear hunting guys, or the guys that are hunting big game out west, they got to have multiple dogs. They got to have a good pack. It's got to be a cohesive pack, and they got to work well together. Our competition dogs are not as similar as that. I mean, we encourage independence. We want that dog to be alone when it's turned loose in a crowd. There's a lot of little nuances to that. And with us traveling up and down the road with one, maybe two dogs instead of, 6 to 8, running a bear or a lion or a bobcat or something like that, it's a lot easier to have that inside dog, that pet, that bond with its owner more so than the pack.
Yeah, makes sense to me. It boils down to logistics.
Right.
Hey, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden with all the questions. All the answers are coming from Josh Michaelis of Joy Dog Food. He's a hound hunter, bird dog guy, and all-around nice person. Josh, tell me a little bit about nutrition, speaking of Joy Dog Food. How and why do you do what you do with what you're giving your dogs to put in their mouths?
Nutrition is, in my opinion, 51% of what makes a quality dog. How they're housed, how they're fed, how they're watered, and how they're taken care of is so important, especially for what we do going up and down the road. And so you're looking at things in a dog food like palatability. The dog has to want to eat it, even when it's nervous, even when it's in a strange situation, because when we're at a week-long event, that's super important to keep the calories in the dog. When you're looking at the type of dog food, you want something that's super digestible. You want something that's going to have all the ingredients to keep that lean muscle mass and the weight on the dog when it's really working hard, especially in the winter. When I switched to Joy Dog Food years ago, I was super impressed with it and how it kept the weight on the hardest hunting dogs, especially the picky dogs. I've got one out here in the yard that's 13 years old that's never ate well. He's always struggled eating on the road. And, the palatability and the digestibility has been a godsend for dogs like that.
It's funny. I just before you came on, we talked about old dogs and basically looked at photos of old dogs on a podcast. Yeah, I challenge anybody else to try that. Anyway, it's so true. And as they age, but as they compete, and like you said, you're at a week-long competition. We're on a week-long road trip hunting our dogs virtually every day. Besides great food, do you use any tricks to get your dogs to eat at night?
Luckily, I haven't had a problem keeping them eating for a while. But I know back in the day when Duds was struggling, that's the old dog's name. I would be down at the Lone Star 5000 in Texas, or I would be at the World Hunt, and you're gone for 7 or 8 days. And we used a lot of toppers. We used stuff, and you want to be careful of what you're encouraging your dog to eat with, because any little change in diet when they're on the road or they're in a situation they're not comfortable with can really lead to a disastrous consequence too. So you have to be careful there. I used a lot of hamburger meat. Yeah, that was one thing that I did mix in with this kibble, and was super digestible, super good for the dog. But there's tricks. Wet dog food will encourage a dog a little bit sometimes. But I know there's a lot of toppers, a lot of those products out right now that come in small bags that don't need to be refrigerated, that you can just open up, put on the dog food, and that'll help a lot.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer. Mine actually doesn't go on the top. It goes at the bottom, so they have to work through all the kibble first.
That's right.
I like those canned dog foods for little dogs that you see. Those work really well. And the other one that I've been experimenting with is this Fortiflora. You know what that is. What do they call it?
Yeah, that's a Purina product. That's a very good product. Yeah, it's probiotic.
Probiotic, yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about the part that one of the reasons I never have gone on a wild pig hunt with hounds in Hawaii, and that is, I mean, you're seeing way more injuries to dogs than we ever will in the bird dog world. What do you see most often, and what can we learn from that in terms of how to repair it or how to avoid it?
Our big issue, especially when we travel down to places like Texas, and sometimes it is hogs. We don't want our dogs running hogs when we're hunting coons.
Sure.
But that happens. You know, dogs are dogs, and they make mistakes sometimes. But our biggest injury is thorns.
Oh.
Our dogs tree up trees, and they're in trees a lot. You know, they spend a majority of the time that they are loose, you know, treeing. And a lot of trees have thorns, especially in Texas. So we are constantly fighting foot injuries with thorns. And, you know, we do a lot of epsom salt soaks. We always check our dog's feet at the end of every hunt, because sometimes that thorn's in there and they're so pumped up on adrenaline, they're not limping yet. And so you want to get it out as fast as you can. You want to get it soaked as fast as you can. We use a mixture of Epsom salt, hydrogen peroxide, and water. And it's always warm. The dogs are used to it. You know, they get comfortable. We carry a small jug that, you know, we use just for that. But that's our biggest injury on the coon hunting side. The hog hunting guys and the bear hunting guys and the lion guys, they have all kinds of injuries. And they're some of the best houndsmen are some of the best vets to part-time veterinarians. They can fix up a dog in the field better than just about any other hunting group.
They have no choice.
Right.
Now tell me how to get your dog to stand still to soak his feet in Epsom salts and water. Do you have a big tub, or you put one foot in a bowl at a time, or how?
One foot at a time. Yeah.
I need this help.
Our dogs are a hound by nature is pretty placid when you got your hands on them.
Sure.
They're pretty easy to manipulate, and they're pretty easy about holding still, but you're holding that dog's foot in there the whole time. Yeah. I mean, you've got a hand on the collar, you've got a hand on the foot, and we use a little narrow, I use a protein powder jug that is, I can fill up, put the cap on, shake it up real good, and it'll fit 1 foot in. And then I just put it in there. I hold the foot, I hold the collar, and a 10-minute soak is about what we usually do on them.
Wow. I love it. Well, that's great information. I'm using that mainly for mud between their toes, but it's the same idea. Yeah. You guys pioneered radio telemetry. The houndsmen are the guys we have to thank, and to a large degree still, the innovations in GPS technology are developed in large part based on experiences in the field with guys who are coonhound aficionados and things like that. What have you learned about GPS collars that maybe we ought to adopt?
You know, from the upland hunters that I've been around, they've always been just, you know, while we're getting the newest, latest, greatest, they're getting the model before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
well, that's because we're cheap, by the way.
Sometimes too. And I'm not going to say it's not as necessary because there's a good majority of the time that you guys are looking at your dogs. You know, you can see them. They're in your eyesight. Yeah. Ours are not, ever. You know, we turn them loose at night, and that's the last time we see them. Everything else is through telemetry and just the sound of their voices. But I think that adopting the latest telemetry and using it and knowing how to use it is important. And in my experience, you know, you guys got some of the best noses on dogs on the planet. Let them branch out, let them use them. And, you know, you can let those dogs work a long ways away from you now, as opposed to 20 years ago when you couldn't watch them on a screen do it.
Yeah, you know, that is a great observation, and it's absolutely true. One of the most common questions I get is, my dog ranges so far in that direction, then so far in that direction. How do I rein him in? And my standard answer is, don't. Just make him, train him so he's steady when he gets out there and finds a bird and can stand a bird.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, with the technology that we have now, I wish I'd have had this when I was bird hunting really hard, because we had beeper collars, and we had an e-collar on them, and we didn't run a tracking collar of any kind when I was bird hunting hard.
Yeah.
And then, I would have loved, because I had some real rangy dogs and that were steady, and I would have loved to just let them go. Would have loved it. Would have saved me so many steps when I was younger, too.
Of course, when you're younger, you deserve that. That's the whole point.
That's true. That's true.
Well, we're getting towards the end of your segment here on the Upland Nation podcast. Josh Michaelis, if you were going to leave us with one bit of advice about any aspect of working with dogs, what would you tell us?
Be patient. These dogs are fantastic animals, and they're so impressive. And they are also very, very frustrating. Keep it cool, be patient, and you'll be better for it in the long run.
Man, those words ought to be tattooed on the inside of everybody's forearm. All useful information. Lots more to come in the second half of the podcast. Josh Michaelis, joydogfood.com is where you learn more about them and what they're doing, and about Josh too, by the way. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, we've still got a lot more. Speaking of handling dogs, we're going to talk about running birds and pointing dogs. We've got a discussion on non-toxic ammo from one of the organizations that is advocating more and broader use of non-toxic for all of us. Keep an open mind. We'll discuss all that and more coming up in the second half of the Upland Nation podcast. First, let me remind you that we're brought to you by TrulockChokes.com. They've got choke tubes for just about everything. Right now, we're thinking turkeys. Yeah, I'm getting way too many turkey pictures. No, I don't mind. Keep sending them. They've got that, of course, and everything else. They make over 2,000 different shotgun chokes. So if you got a gun, go on the website, TrulockChokes.com. Match your gun to the type of hunting, to the type of bird, to the type of choke you're looking for. And then if you're wondering what the heck all those notches in your choke tube mean, because you just got a new pointer shotgun, for example, well, they've got identification codes for just about everything there. It's all at TrulockChokes.com, your resource for all things choke tubes. And for everything else, MidwayUSA.com is where you go. They got just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Yep, dummy launchers. I was talking about that just a while back. Boots, extremely competitive pricing. It's all there at MidwayUSA.com. Apparel of all sorts, including a lot of upland apparel. So shop your way through MidwayUSA.com. Back to the floor of the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic here in Minneapolis. The crowd for a Sunday afternoon is pretty darn strong. I'm thinking we're probably going to have a great turnout by the end of this show. And one of the things that is a very hot topic right now is what I'll loosely call non-toxic ammunition. So Hannah Leonard joins me. She's with Sporting Lead Free. Hannah, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, congratulations, you just got a promotion. Tell me about that.
I did. So I was the outreach coordinator for Sporting Lead Free, and I have been for almost the last 2 years. And now with our success of our messaging, I am now the program director. So that means that I get to focus more on our national efforts. And we brought on a new outreach coordinator who will be focused on our Wyoming region. So as we grow, I get to grow with the company.
Well, tell me a little bit about the organization real quick, well, what your objectives are and how you're doing that.
Absolutely. So Sporting Lead Free is a non-political, non-regulatory education initiative for informing folks on switching to lead-free alternatives in the field. So whether you're upland hunting, big game hunting, or angling, we provide education and resources for folks to make that switch.
That's got to be a tough row to hoe.
It is. It is a slow burn, but I will say that it has been really, really awesome and exciting, especially here at Pheasant Fest, how much great reaction we've had from folks. I had a gentleman this morning who came to the booth and said, I will absolutely never stop shooting my lead bullets. And he walked away 10 minutes later, a little teary-eyed, saying, wow, I just learned a lot, and I am very excited to learn more.
And, I've been around the block on all of that, not just from a personal basis, but from hearing everybody and all their excuses for not going to non-toxic. What convinced that guy?
That guy was convinced just in our conversation. He said, I didn't realize that amount of lead was enough to take down an eagle. So it's only 20 milligrams of lead. It's the weight of a ladybug. That's enough to kill an adult bald eagle. So he saw that visually. We have these great displays at our booth. So he saw that, and then he also didn't realize that sometimes when we bring home meat to our families, that might contain a little bit of lead. And he has grandkids at home, and so he wants to make sure that when he's bringing home meat and he's continuing that hunting heritage, that he's doing it in a way that his future generations can not only exist in that same space and hunt, but also be healthy enough to do that.
So let's cut to the chase. Pardon the pun. You'll get what I mean in a moment here. Because what do you tell the guy who 2 years ago was peppered with bird shot?
Oh, my goodness.
And they decided to leave it in. Why isn't he dying of lead poisoning?
Well, so a couple of things there. That sounds awful. And
yes,
sorry
can't imagine. Yeah.
I can't imagine that either. So when we hold lead in our hand, lead is pretty stable in that environment. So in our skin, it's going to be pretty stable.
Okay.
As soon as lead hits an acid, so let's talk about our stomach acids.
Mm-hmm.
Birds have a very acidic digestive system. Also, our marinades that we are cooking our meat in are typically an acid. So as soon as that lead touches that acid, that's when it becomes really readily absorbable. So in the case of someone being peppered with shot, they might not be experiencing those effects because their bodies might not be as acidic as our stomach acids. But I did speak with a gentleman earlier this morning that he rescued a swan that had been shot, and it actually didn't end up dying from the wounds from the shot,
Sure.
But it had lead in its GI tract, and that's ultimately what took that bird.
And we've heard about how that happens. Of course, there's a lot of ways, but it's gut piles and it's whatever else. But when a human eats a pheasant breast with one pellet in it, is it just because it passes through so quickly, or is there risk there as well?
So, and I want to back up a little bit too,
right.
And I want to say that this, again, we're not trying to fear factor folks,
Sure.
right? Like if you and I eat a little bit of lead, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
For humans, there is no known safe amount of lead for us to consume. In Europe, they have levels within their food that is labeled as safe and unsafe. We do not have that in the United States. However,
that explains my wife's switch to a different chocolate brand, by the way. That's red hot right now. But
that is a red hot topic, right? Oh my gosh, they're coming after our chocolate now. No. So for humans, if we, like my dad, and he's going to kill me, I always tell the story, he's pretty bad at cleaning his birds. Mm-hmm. And so, you kind of giggle, you have that, bite down on that shot, you spit it out. But like I just mentioned earlier, when it hits an acid, that's when it becomes kind of dangerous.
Yeah,
so lead shot, that big chunk, yes, as humans, if we eat that, it'll pass through usually. However, when it hits our stomach acids, that's now being in our bloodstream,
right.
And that's now being stored in our bones and our brain. So just like how we took lead out of gasoline, lead out of paint, getting that lead out of those water pipes, that it accumulates over time. So even if we have it once, it's still in our system. Same thing with our wildlife. So those eagles, they can eat that lead over and over again, and it's just going to take that one kind of tipping point to send them over the edge.
Let's talk a little bit about the practical side of things. My big gripe would be, if I was all those guys walking past your booth, it would be, but non-toxic ammo costs so much, and then many versions of it are less efficient. So how do you counter those arguments?
Great question. So first, let's talk about what sporting activity that you're interested in. Like I said earlier, we talk about big game hunting, upland hunting, and angling. So because we're at Pheasant Fest, let's talk about upland hunting. So the alternatives in upland hunting for lead are going to be steel, bismuth, tungsten, and then also copper-plated bismuth. So you'll see people kind of balk at the price, right? Well, the cool thing with non-toxic is that you are investing not only in what you are spewing across the landscape, right? As we shoot, not all of our pellets are hitting those birds, but what you're bringing home is also going to be non-toxic, right? So you kind of have to level with yourself and say, okay, I might be spending a little bit more on these boxes of bismuth, but I'm investing in this hunting heritage.
Yeah.
I'm investing in knowing that in future generations, there aren't going to be folks out there saying, hey, hunters are out here poisoning animals, they're poisoning kids. They're going to be able to say, hey, I know what I put on the landscape was safe for my family and for that wildlife.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of about leveling with folks on what their values are.
Yeah.
So, and additionally, with the performance standpoint, I get a lot of people that say, oh, well, this and this and this, that doesn't work. And I say, well, when did you last try, say a copper bullet or say, steel? And they're like, oh, well, when it first came out in the 80s, it was terrible. I was like, well, what did your cell phone look like in the 80s? So with everything, anything that can be engineered, of course, we're going to, engineer it. We're going to make it better. So technology improves. So try it again. Go out there, pattern your shotgun. Try different brands. Try different chokes. Like when you go and buy a new rifle, you don't just go out and shoot a deer with it. You go to the range, you sight it in. Do the same thing with your shotgun. Get to know that shot. Get to know your chokes. See what's going to happen in the field.
My evolution went through a phase where I actually asked my followers, how many shots do you take during a bird hunting season? And granted, bird hunters are going to be giving a different answer than a deer or an elk hunter or somebody like that. Most of us take, 3-4 dozen shots. Maybe we shoot 4 or 5 boxes in the field. And if you do the math on a per round basis, that's a Starbucks coffee every other day.
Absolutely.
And that's all.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm lecturing now, but I did the math, and it's not that bad. But it is a perception. So
Absolutely.
What do you do to encourage us to do? Are there incentives? Is there a reason? Go ahead and give me the scare tactic if you want. But is there anything coming down the pike in the way of impositions on us?
So, like I mentioned earlier, too, we are a non-regulatory organization. So you won't see us lobbying. You won't see any of that. We really, truly believe that education is the way to go forward with this message. A lot of folks, they'll walk past the booth, they'll see the lead-free, and they'll say, oh, this is one of those organizations that they're just a back alleyway. They're going to take our guns. And I'm going to just flip that on its head. And just like I said earlier, this is our way to protect our hunting heritage because we know better. This is a human-caused issue. We have a human-caused solution, which is so cool. How many other things that we do to the environment we can't fix individually. As individual hunters and anglers, we can fix this issue, which is so cool. That's so empowering. So I always want people to walk away from my booth not only feeling like they gained a lot of knowledge, but also feeling empowered. We have a website full of resources to help you make that switch. Whether you're switching for wildlife, for your family, or for hunting heritage, any one of those, I'm going to pull your heartstrings on them, or I'll find something else and pull your heartstring on that, and you'll leave my booth smiling. So.
With a sticker or something.
With a sticker or a koozie or you name it.
Well, that's just great. And just so that if we do want to learn more about, if we want to finally come to our own conclusions about a rationale for using non-toxic, what's the website address?
So our website is sportingleadfree, all one word, .org. So sportingleadfree.org.
That's Hannah Leonard with Sporting Lead Free. I got to practice that, I guess.
It's a tongue twister.
It is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But it does make you talk about it again for another 20 seconds right here. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And we are brought to you by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. This time of year, it's time to take a lesson or 10. Yeah, I'm going back, taking the RV, staying a while, going to shoot all the games, including, hopefully, very soon, a new game. After Hours Wednesday, don't forget, if you're in Western Oregon and you're looking for someplace to shoot after work, just call Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Get the number at midvalleyclays.com, and they'll leave the lights on for you on Wednesdays. They'll stay as long as you want to shoot at midvalleyclays.com. Sage and Breaker is where you go for your gun cleaning and care and transport, I guess I'll call the third leg of that stool there. SageandBreaker.com is where you learn more about all of their gear. Free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Yeah, the range bag is just about back. Yeah, sold out. That's how good it is. Take a look at all of your gear right now, your gun cleaning gear and your guns. You might need a new cleaning mat, some of the tools, or some of the what we call consumables, like their Clean, Lube, and Protect, or their firearms grease. Sign up for the email list, and you won't miss out on future sales. You'll get first notice when the range bags are back in stock. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. Well, I learned this again in South Dakota last season. It was very hot, and the birds, all pheasants there where we were all hanging out in those big patches of cattails because that's where the shade was. The ground was a little moist, in fact, the only moisture around, so they were cooler in there for the shade and the moisture. And what we would have a problem with, the dogs would hit a point, and we'd be standing there, and sometimes we had 2 or 3 guys plus me. Thank you all for coming, by the way, to the FurFeathersFriends event. But we'd all stand there and admire the dog, and then we'd all kind of put a push onto that cattail patch. And son of a gun, if the birds would not run out or sometimes fly out the far side. Sharptails have done the same thing. You get to that one isolated patch of snowberry or wild plum or something else on the hillside. Dog hits a point, you walk in alongside the dog. They're gone because they went out. Okay, I'm a slow learner, but I learned this. Once you figure out where those birds are, circle it. Everybody be safe, only shoot high birds, but at least if you're blocking off some of those other escape routes, just like you would in a block and drive hunt in a cornfield, there's a better chance somebody's going to get a shot. Send in the flushers, send in the junior partner in your hunting party, or invest in a Caterpillar D9. Put something in there to get the birds out, and if you got enough people covering all the escape routes, maybe somebody will get a shot. Be safe. Enjoy yourself. Use the circle strategy next time you're looking at a big patch and a small bird. Well, thank you all, especially Josh Michaelis of Joy Dog Food and Hannah Leonard of Sporting Lead Free. Sure learned a lot. I appreciate all of you who comment at social media platforms. Thanks for all those great old dog photos and stories. Yeah, if you haven't read them yet, get over there and leave the Kleenex handy. I appreciate those who left ratings and reviews, and all of our sponsors, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Joy Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, and TrulockChokes. There's lots to learn at findbirdhuntingspots.com, whether it's dog training or looking for new ideas for places to go this season. So come on down anytime, findbirdhuntingspots.com. And until we learn more next time, I hope to see you on the range. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation podcast.